Slaves! By the powers vested in me by Caesar, the Senate, the people of Rome, and whatnot, I, Senator Caius Habeas Prospectus, bada bing, set you free.
We're free now? For real?
Yes.
Wonderful. We really appreciate it, don't we?
Great! Oh, may I remind you to hand in the keys to your apartment?
But we were under the impression they'd been given to us.
When you were still slaves, but alas, no more. Now you'll have to pay rent. It costs 15 sesterces a week,
15
I believe.
sesterces? That's a hefty sum.
But the good news is, it just so happens we have positions currently available in construction. The salary is 15 sesterces per week. Do you accept?
It's an interesting proposition.
Done! You're hired! Square on the hypotenuse, shouldn't your workers be working?
Enough loafing around! What do you lazy bums think Caesar pays you for? Get your butts back to the construction site and get to work!
I call that slavery.
Oh, let me see here. Audio. Okay, the audio should be good now. All right. The audio should be fine now. All right, so again, first and foremost, I want to give all praises to the Most High, Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushai, Bahashim, Rakah HaKodash. I want to give double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. I want to say shalom to all the brothers. Of course, the few sisters who are pursuing this truth in sincerity. All right, may the blessing of election be upon your house. Okay, I'm gonna run this clip, and then we'll speak on it. We'll bring precepts out.
Slaves! By the powers vested in me by Caesar, the Senate, the people of Rome, and whatnot, I, Senator Caius Habeas Prospectus, bada bing, set you free.
We're free now? For real?
Yes.
Wonderful. We really appreciate it, don't we?
Great! Oh, may I remind you to hand in the keys to your apartment?
But we were under the impression they'd been given to us.
When you were still slaves, but alas, no more. Now you'll have to pay rent. It costs 15 sesterces a week,
15
I believe.
sesterces? That's a hefty sum.
But the good news is, it just so happens we have positions currently available in construction. The salary is 15 sesterces per week. Do you accept?
It's an interesting proposition.
Done! You're hired! Square on the hypotenuse, shouldn't your workers be working?
Enough loafing around! What do you lazy bums think Caesar pays you for? Get your butts back to the construction site and get to work!
I call that slavery.
All right, so the title of the lesson is "You're Yet This Day in Your Captivity." And our people, they don't really, 2/3 of our people, they don't really understand they're in bondage into what level that they're in captivity. Okay. Yeah, we've been given over to the hand of Esau, but it's what's the cause of it? Cause of it is our disobedience to our Lord. Okay, which we're gonna get in Baruch 3. And the only way out of this captivity, we can't buy back the block and do it of our own accord, of our own strength. The Lord, He's not even gonna allow that to happen. Okay, He has it set up to where we're gonna be in captivity until the elect are sealed and He delivers us out of this bondage. All right, but majority of our people, they don't understand that. They think it's something that they could do of their own merits, of their own accord, which is not the case. Okay, pursuing the prophecy, nobody can override what the Lord has set in place. Okay, now when we go to Baruch 3, all right, we'll start at verse 7. It reads, it says, "And for this cause thou hast put thy fear in our hearts, to the intent that we should call upon thy name, that we would turn from our ways, repent, pray." All right, and that name there is important. The question is posed in the scriptures: what is his name? What is his son's name, if thou canst tell? And it's not Jesus. It's not God. All right. The elect, those who are going to receive salvation, are going to have the name and they're going to have the full understanding to what it takes to receive salvation. All right. There's going to be no deceit in the words that they push. All right. Revelation, the 14th chapter, tells you that there should be no guile in their mouth, meaning no deceit, meaning they have the full understanding for what in salvation entails. Okay. Continuing on here, verse 7 from the top, Baruch 3 and 7. "And for this cause thou hast put thy fear in our hearts, to the intent that we should call upon thy name and praise thee in our captivity. In our captivity. For we have called to mind all the iniquity of our forefathers that sinned before thee. Behold, we are yet this day in our captivity." All right, the curses aren't going to be lifted off of us until when, brothers and sisters? You go to Revelation 22 and 3. "Upon the establishment of the kingdom of heaven," it says, "and then there shall be no more curse." So we have to be changed. The laws have to be put within our inward parts. We need new bodies. All right, because we're wrapped in sin right now. So when we're changed upon a return of the Lord and we come down, New Jerusalem comes down from the heavens and the kingdom of heaven is being established, that's when the curses are completely gone. We're no longer subject to the evils that come along with the sins that we committed. We're going to be new creatures in full. We're new creatures in the mind and the spirit, but we're going to be new creatures physically. That's going to manifest. And that's what we want, man. You don't hear a lot of other Israelite groups talk about the new bodies that we're going to receive. They don't go into the, the nuances of what salvation actually entails, which is a red flag in itself. All right, so let's continue reading here. Verse 8 again. "Behold, we are yet this day in our captivity, where thou hast scattered us. We're scattered into every nation under heaven. But the predominant bulk of the nation of Israel is going to be in Babylon the Great." All right. Where Judah and Israel are all pressed together. There's a final captivity where all 12 tribes are going to be oppressed together. Where is that? That's the Americas. Where is the truth being, spoken of? Where did the dry bones, stand upon their feet at? Here in America, Babylon the Great. Who will be ruling Babylon the Great, or the daughter of Babylon in the last days? The Edomites. Psalm 137, verses 7 and 8. So it's quite easy to put things together. Uh, you know, you don't have to, when you're lying, you got to make up a bunch of stuff. You got to backtrack. But, the scriptures are actually quite simple, especially if you have the eyes out. Okay, and yeah, I brought that up just because, you got those guys over there at Genesis recently saying that the lake of fire isn't going to be America. I don't know. Clearly the Lord isn't dealing with these guys, but let's continue on now. And when you go on Google, you used to be able to go look up the word employee, the law definition of employee, and it would tell you that it simply meant slave. But you know, now you got AI. When you put it in, AI will play semantics with you, and they'll say, okay, that was forced labor, slavery. It's this. These people get paid for their services, but what you're getting paid doesn't counterbalance um, the payments that you're subject to. There's really not any room for a majority of people unless you really get in bed with this devil on an even higher level for upward mobility. It's not too. You might be able to save a little bit and do okay for yourself, but not to the point to where you could be sovereign. No, that's not a. It's not an avenue it's accessible to us, especially in Israelite. All right, so that's why I ran that clip. Even in that clip, you'll see when he said, "Oh, you guys are free from slavery, but we got these new job openings, and you could pay for your apartment for." And it was the exact same amount that they got paid. It wasn't any room for upward mobility. They were still subject to those payments. They were still subject to their former masters. So slavery, cattle slavery, was just renovated into something else. So we would tell our people, man, you're still in captivity under your enemies. And our people don't want to acknowledge that they have enemies, because if you have to acknowledge that you have enemies, then there's something that you have to stand for, and there's something that you have to fight for. And our people are not willing to do either one of those things. All right, so they'll just tell them, I don't have an enemy, and they're too busy. They just want acceptance from these other nations. None of these other nations are looking for acceptance. Every other nation of people, they're looking for what? They're looking for superiority. You're the only people, the Israelites are the only people on the earth looking for acceptance and tolerance and approval from other nations. Everybody else is looking for supremacy. And when they have it, and when these other nations had supremacy, they treated you like pieces of shit. That's how they view you, and that's just how they are. But you're the only nation seeking approval from these people, when the Lord has set us up to be the nation to give approval. All right, but that's neither here nor there. What can you do? That's their lot, to be simple-minded. I'm gonna play that clip one more time, and I'm gonna get the definition for wage slavery, because you can find, you know, it basically alludes to what you used to be able to find with employment. They made a different term up for it, wage slavery. So we'll get that after I run this clip one more time.
Slaves! By the powers vested in me by Caesar, the Senate, the people of Rome, and whatnot, I, Senator Caius Habeas Prospectus, bada bing, set you free.
We're free now? For real?
Yes.
Wonderful. We really appreciate it, don't we?
Great. Oh, may I remind you to hand in the keys to your apartment?
But we were under the impression they'd been given to us.
When you were still slaves, but alas, no more. Now you'll have to pay rent. It costs 15 sesterces a week,
15
I believe.
sesterces? That's a hefty sum.
But the good news is, it just so happens we have positions currently available in construction. The salary is 15 sesterces per week. Do you accept?
It's an interesting proposition.
Done! You're hired! Square on the hypotenuse, shouldn't your workers be working?
Enough loafing around! What do you lazy bums think Caesar pays you for? Get your butts back to the construction site and get to work!
I call that slavery.
All right. So even when he offered him the job, he didn't give him time to even think about it. Maybe there's another way. Maybe there's another way to go about things. Not at all. Especially if you're a teacher within this ministry. Our job is to bring out the word, and we can bring out the word any place in the world. But we understand that we're going to be in the midst of Babylon and get delivered out of the midst of Babylon, and we have a job to do here. So, but I tell you, man, if it wasn't for this truth, I probably wouldn't even be in Babylon. But no matter where you go on the earth, you're going to be subject to the so-called white man's standard, to his way, to his conniving ways, to his thievery. You're going to be subject to it no matter where you go. All right. So I wasn't get to the definition of wage slavery here. It says wage slavery is a term used to criticize the exploitation of labor by business by keeping wages so low. It doesn't say so low, but they are keeping them so low or stagnant in order to maximize profits. Now, in that video, the price that he was paying them was the same price for the infrastructure, the apartments. That's the term they used. that they had already built, that they were going to build anyway. You got to have a place to house your slaves. So they were just counteracting, what they would have built anyway. So they weren't really losing any money by giving, those slaves the wages they were giving them. They're not losing really any money by paying you the shit that they're paying you at your job. Even if you think you got a well-paying job, the amount that they make, it completely counteracts that. All right? The situation of wage slavery can be loosely defined as a person's dependence on wages or a salary for their livelihood, especially when wages are low. Treatment and conditions are poor, and there are few chances for what? Upward mobility. You're not gonna work your way into sovereignty. You're not gonna hard work your way into sovereignty, man. And the people, even the Jake you think got money, they're still in bondage in other ways. They're in bondage just like you in one way or another. Okay? Just because they in the house don't mean they free. All right, so got that definition. Now I want to go to Deuteronomy 28. Gonna read a couple scriptures out of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. It's Deuteronomy 28:33. It says, the fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up. You don't benefit from the work that you do. You don't have you're not the company, the corporation that you work for. It's not allowing you really to reap the benefits of your labor to the point to where you could be set up for life, or you could set your family up for good. No, hell no. Not in the way that you should be. Okay? Jump down to verse 38. It says, thou shalt carry much seed into the field and shalt gather but little in. Your wages are low. You're gonna gather, you're doing a lot of work, but you're not getting compensated fairly enough to where that will be in an upright way. For the locust shall consume it. Okay? Continuing on. Jump down to verse 48. It says, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness. This is a curse that the Lord put on us, that you're not going to supersede it. Jake is always trying to find a way around the curses, but there is no real way around the curses. The Lord put these on us as a sign and a wonder, and they're there, okay, for a reason. And you could be upset about it or whatever. But the only solution is to repent and to be delivered out of this place and the kingdom of heaven to be established. Okay, again, Deuteronomy 28:48. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. But he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he hath destroyed thee. And you all know when you type in yoke of iron on Google, who's going to come up? The Israelites, right? Yeah. Yep. So I mentioned that the Lord put those curses on us for a sign and a wonder. That's verse 46. Okay. Now jump up to 45. It says, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and shall pursue thee and overtake thee till thou be destroyed. And our people are completely destroyed. That's why when you try to reason with them and tell them, hey, you're an Israelite. This is a standard that we're supposed to abide by. They hate it. And their first concern is, what about the white man? What about the man? What about the massa? Till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded thee. All right, so it's really quite simple, and it's frustrating, but we still have to continue to strive lawfully, be about the Lord's business, grow in understanding, build up our faith, so we can resist, the wiles of the devil when he plays that final card he wants to play, which is that Karak. Okay, so Abaratazah, the lesson was edifying. I'm gonna have to timestamp where to start because I know the first portion of the video was silent. But Abaratazah, you got something from it. Want to give all praises once more to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh, Bahashem, Barakah HaKodash. Want to give double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. I want to say shalom to all the brothers and, of course, the few sisters pursuing this truth and sincerity. May the blessing of election be upon your house. Shalom.